we are seeing the rise of AI agents that could soon autonomously do work for us on the internet. So, AI agents, when we use that term, we're talking about autonomous systems that can do far more than just chat. So, using text prompts, you can actually instruct AI agents not just to give you a response, but actually to go perform tasks for you online by using websites, apps, and tools like spreadsheets in order to achieve goals. We have a new report this past week in the New York Times where many researchers are quoted as saying they think that these types of agents could eventually replace the vast majority of white collar work. We're already seeing early versions of this technology out in the wild. The New York Times profiled NVIDIA, who created an agent that plays the game Minecraft. OpenAI is increasingly adding agent like features to ChatGPT. It can now do certain things like take certain actions online through plugins and do things with data. And our friends at Hyperwrite have actually released a full AI agent called Personal Assistant that is still in the early days, but is able to actually perform tasks on the internet. So, Paul, first off, why are AI agents such a big deal?
Well, I think their impact on knowledge work is just so unknown. Not only knowledge work, but just consumer behavior, online search, like everything. Like the way we do what we do today, they seem to hold the potential to reshape that. And so as we've talked about on the show many times, there's so much uncertainty around just the impact of language models like on their own. Like if we just look at GPT-4, whatever comes next, and we try and project out the impact on work and the impact on consumer behavior, that's hard enough. But when you throw in the possibility of AI being able to take actions on our behalf, to book the trips for us, to fill out the forms, to string together a series of actions, that's truly transformative to everything we do with devices. And that's really hard to wrap your mind around. And I've yet to really see any research that does a reasonable job of trying to estimate that. And in part because the tech is so early, no one's really seen it applied in a way where you can project out at scale what it's going to be able to do. It's almost like if you rewound back to like 2017, 2018, when we first got our glimpses of what these language models could do. And in 2018, you're trying to say, well, by 2022, 2023, here's what they're going to be able to do. That's kind of the stage we're at here. We're in these very formative days. There's a company we've talked about before called Adept.ai is the URL. They just announced a $350 million round in March of this year,
Hmm.
but they have a model called Act One that is sort of designed to be a foundational model for these AI agents, just like we have all these foundational models now in language. And so it seems like we're just very much on like the cusp of this stuff working. You mentioned Hyperwrite. I know they're early. They've positioned it as an alpha product. They know it doesn't work all the time. It breaks a bunch, but it seems like we're just now starting to get a glimpse of what this can mean to how we as consumers interact with websites and information, and how we as companies enable people to interact and to take actions with what we create.
So it seems like the promise is there for these AI agents. It seems to me, though, am I right in saying we're pretty early?
Oh yeah, I mean that's like I was saying. I mean, I think we're just at the foundational levels. Like Hyperwrite's one of the first ones you can test. Adept, you can just join their wait list. Like you can't even go and get access to it, and they'll show you a bunch of use cases. But I think the Minecraft example you mentioned is really interesting because that's being able to see this applied. I think it helps to start thinking about like some practical examples. Like at least for me, that's always a good way to think about it. So, like at Hyperwrite and Adept, you can think about any example here or any company. But like for example, let's say I want to go find job candidates on LinkedIn. How would I do that right now? I would probably figure out what those candidates look like, what companies they might be working for. And I'm going to go around LinkedIn. I'm going to click on a bunch of profiles. I'm going to collect information. So I'm going to put together this, like, okay, I'm going to take these 7 steps. I'm going to conduct this search. I'm going to look for this information. I'm going to copy and paste this over, like whatever I'm going to do. Imagine you have to do any of that stuff. Imagine a series of these agents that They're able to go on your behalf and do that. Go find me candidates on LinkedIn that meet these criteria. And then the agent goes out and it looks through LinkedIn and it curates all this stuff. And then it comes back to you with a brief. Here are the 25 candidates I found that met your criteria.
Mm,
You can do the same thing with sales prospects. I was thinking about an example where each year for Macon, I go hunting for speakers. And so you're trying to find people who have spoken at other conferences because AI speakers historically have been kind of hard to find, people who have actually done the stuff and are able to tell these stories. So I go through a list of, okay, go to other event sites, review their agenda, find anyone that did an AI talk, then go to LinkedIn, pull their profiles. Like it's this very manual process
mhm,
that up until now, there's no other way to do it. The only more efficient way is to get someone else to do it for me. So I may like have someone on our team or like in big companies, you start thinking about these really manual things that you're offshoring for more cost efficiency. But I think it could be a massive disruption to that process. Like maybe it's not a lot of offshoring in the future. Maybe you're just using AI agents to do this stuff. Um, the example I gave back in February when we talked about this on the podcast episode, when I wrote that World of Bits article about how OpenAI was working on this very thing. And the example in that one I gave was in HubSpot to send a single marketing email is a minimum of 21 clicks.
mm,
And so if you think about the applications to marketing and to business in the future, it may just be a prompt. Send an email to anyone who's attended the webinar last week. And if they are already an existing customer, send them this email. If they're not, so like you're giving a prompt to the machine of what you want, and then the AI agents can go and build the email. They can go take action. So I
mhm,
think that's the biggest distinction here is right now we have models that can output things for us. They can give us briefs, they can ideate, they can outline things, they can transcribe things. Like they can do that, but they can't take any action on our behalf. This is they're able to go do that. And it is again really hard to imagine the impact this can have if these work. And I think 2024 we're going to start to get a lot of options to start playing around with this technology, and it's not going to be very good. It's probably going to be like GPT-1 level, like where the language models were when we first started, but it seems like it's going to iterate pretty quickly. So
mhm.
I don't think a bunch of marketers and business professionals like next year you're just going to have AI agents doing your work for you, but it does seem like we're on that kind of 1 to 3 year horizon where these things really start to take shape and impact how we do our jobs.
So let's take a stab at maybe talking through some of the implications here with the full caveat that, yeah, we're still some years away from these being really, really good. But it does seem like if AI agents reach their potential, we have a lot less need for people doing certain digital work online in the way we've described. And that's a lot of people. I mean, what are you seeing as the implications here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's just so hard to project. But when we talk about like, we commonly say like 80% of what knowledge workers do will be AI assisted to some degree in the next 1 to 2 years. And most of the instance we're thinking about there is actually just generative AI and like machine learning making predictions. We're not really factoring in AI agents actually doing the work for them per se. And so that's what I'm saying. Like so much of the projections right now about the impact on knowledge work are really just based on the tech we know today that already works. If you start thinking about this, like it's I don't know. I mean, it's going to change everything. Like I had a conversation with a product team earlier this year, like a SaaS company that builds marketing and sales software. And they were starting to ask questions around like, well, do we even need a navigation on our site? Like, how
Mm,
does this change the way we design user experiences and apps and websites? So I think it's truly like this almost like first principles thing where you have to go back to the very basics and say, well, what is the future of interactions with websites? What is the future of seeking information? What is the future of search? Like it's so potentially transformational to everything we know to be true about business that it becomes hard to accurately project anything. Um, so I don't know. I really don't. I haven't played around with Hyperwrite's personal assistant yet. I was waiting until it was going to be viable until you could really get that experience. And they just announced, like I saw Matt Schumer, who's the CEO. just tweeted last week, it was like last Friday, that they just released an updated version of Personal Assistant. And, it operates on your browser to actually complete tasks. It cites sources so you can trust what it says. And it kind of goes on. So we'll put the link to Matt's tweet in the post, but they have content on their website that talks about this new personal assistant that they say is the most powerful one available today. And so I think like you can go and start to experience for yourself the impact that it might have, knowing it's still, again, kind of an alpha product,
Mhm.
but it's probably the best way to interact with this technology and start, making some assumptions for yourself. But I think sometime in mid to late 2024, we're probably going to have to start planning for AI agents the way we were planning in the end of 2023 for generative AI moving into the next year. So right now, if you're in a business and you're not thinking about the impact of generative AI on your workers, on your production processes, on really every aspect of your business across all business functions, you're probably going to be behind next year. And I think, come this time next year, we may be in a similar place with AI agents.